Fantasy Football Fix. I am Richard from the Gypsy Dudes, taking a break from my tour with Welsh Wrestling this week. Remember, we've got shows running all week. Details at the website, but doesn't it seem so long ago since we were last together? We've had the midweek games, there was the FA Cup weekend, but finally we can get back to some real business of Fantasy Premier League. But before we look ahead at game week 26, let's look way back when and see what we can learn from the game week 25 Dream Team. It's the awesome 3-4-3 formation, and oh Harry Kane, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. An 11-point effort and his third double digits points haul in 3 weeks. That's 8 goals, 3 assists and 13 bonus points in 2015. Unbelievable, and he's still only 6.3 million. I get a feeling that he's going to sweep the board when it comes to the end of the season. Fantasy Football Fix Awards, hint hint. Alongside him, Brown Idai had his only significant points of the season, and Dame Doy had a roaring first start for Hull with a big 12 points haul. I think his name sounds like something that you would say to someone after they've said something stupid or obvious. Of course it is, Doy. In the midfield, Ozil continued his form since coming back from injury. 11 points from 2 assists, clean sheet and man of the match sees the German amount 32 points in his last 3 games since coming back from injury, seeing his price rise to 9.1 million. Alongside him, there were 3 men who scored points rarely seen from them as of late, with Willian and Fur both getting a goal, full bonus and clean sheet, while Nasri took his goal and bonus points with a side order of assist. In the defence, we saw Southampton representing with Gardos coming in for a clean sheet man of the match display. Koscielny continued his good form with a 10-point goal scoring display. Apart from the North London derby, old Lauren has been grabbing points regularly. He's getting involved with the game all the time. I tell you what, he might be an option for you. Continuing the trend that you can't rely on any Man United player to be consistent, Chris Smalling scored the big sexy points of the week with a brace and full bonus points. Blind gets the big points in the 2 weeks previous. Smalling this week. How can you put any Man United player in your team right now? How can you have a team that is 3rd in the league and not want any of their players in your team? It's mind-boggling. Finally in goal, Alan McGregor showed the form that saw so many managers get on him after week 1 and subsequently dump him a few weeks later with a gentleman's 8 points. Some things to consider going forward in that dream team, dare I say. But let's stop looking in the past, let's live in the now. Let's look ahead to the game week 26 players for your consideration. Last time out, I mentioned lumping on Hull to win with a clean sheet against Villa, which in all honesty, against this Villa side, is like shooting fish in a barrel. But one name that we didn't talk about in that Hull team, a new signing for them who managed to get into last week's dream team, it's Dame Ndoye. Because you know what we don't have enough of in this game? Cheap strikers. But you can't avoid how well he did in that last outing. But before you go crazy and start lumping on Ndoye, learn lessons from Elliot at Southampton. His second game after signing, 15 points against Newcastle. 100,000 managers lumped on him after that display, and since then he's been getting nothing more than appearance points and the occasional clean sheet points. Now, seeing as Hull are home to QPR, a few weeks ago this would have been home win, clean sheet, lump on the defence. But QPR have finally won away and done it impressively. A 2-0 win at a slightly informed Sunderland, and they managed to stop Defoe scoring as well, and they did it without their main man, Charlie Austin. The big problem for QPR is now that their 2 main point scorers are both out. Austin is out, and Fur is red boxed as well. That means attack-wise, QPR have got to scrape the bottom of the barrel and rely on Bobby Zamora. Look for points again in the defence from Hull, but let's see if that Jelavic-Ndoye partnership starts to blossom. Another defence to show some confidence in is at Goodison Park, where Everton host Leicester. 3 clean sheets in the last 4 games, and it took Chelsea up to the 88th minute to finally get one past them, and that was a deflected shot. Everton are completely incapable of scoring a goal right now. That's a fact, but they are more than capable of stopping other teams from scoring. So what defensive options have we got? There's Seamus Coleman's for 6.8 million, a really high price tag, usually justified by the fact that he'll get some assists and some goals throughout the season. But if Everton aren't attacking and aren't getting any attacking points, then he ain't worth it. Who else is there? There's Phil Jagielka, who's been in great form, scoring 28 points in his last 4 games. 8 of those points coming from bonus points, showing just how important he is to that Everton defence and how much Everton are relying on that defence. He's 5.5 million. But if you want to squeeze those pennies a little bit more, for 5.2 million, you can join the man of the Blues watch, the keeper of the toffee wall. It's John Stones. You know nothing, John Stones. The only difference between him and old Phil Jagielka is that Stones doesn't get the bonus points that Jagielka does. But he's the future of English football, and for 5.2, I would definitely consider lumping on John Stones. They're the 2 top teams in the league, and they're both looking to continue winning at home. First, it's Man City versus Newcastle, and those who showed blind faith in Aguero the last couple of weeks were finally rewarded with the Argentine grabbing a brace last time out. As of recording of this show, he is yellow boxed, but if he's fit, he's gonna play, and if you're still on him, stick with him. I was this close to dropping him last game week. The only reason he stayed in my team is I had a couple of yellow boxes and I didn't want to keep spending money. So I had to make the transfers elsewhere. He stayed in and it worked out okay for me. So if you did drop him, sorry. The big question in this game, will Bonnie debut? Will we see the partnership of 2 of the best goal scorers in the Premier League today begin this weekend? I hope so, and I am really interested to see how this goes. If it works, suddenly we could have a situation where we have one of the top attacking teams in the league have a starting striker at only 8.2 million. That's gotta be sweet. I'd be tempted to go for him. If you don't have Aguero and you can't afford to get him back in, then consider Bonnie as an alternative. Now Chelsea are also home as they play host to Burnley, and guess who's back? It's only bloody Diego Costa. When we last saw him, he was scoring a brace against Swansea, and since then, due to his suspension, his price has dropped. He's now valued at under £11 million for the first time since game week 11. And if he is still on form like he was before he got suspended, which saw him score 4 goals in his last 3 games played, then you gotta get back on him. This is another reason why managers should be very interested and really crossing their fingers hoping that Bonnie hits the ground running at Man City. Why? I'll tell you why. Getting Aguero and Costa in the same team right now is going to cost you over £23.5 million of your budget. But if you go for Costa over Aguero, having Bonnie next to him for 8.2 million is doable. Very doable. Next to them, you get Harry Kane, and suddenly you've got a damn good strike force representing 3 of the top 5 clubs coming in at just over 25 million. That is manageable. That's a good budget. It sounds good in theory, but the big thing is that we need to see Bonnie continue his Swansea form at Man City and Costa to go right back to where he left off before his suspension. Right, we're going to do something a little bit different now. I've invited a guest contributor to take a different view at the state of play in Fantasy Premier League. It's something I hope to do more of in the next couple of weeks, especially with us entering the part of the season where championships and private leagues are decided. It's getting into the business end of the season, ladies and gentlemen. This week, we look towards Fantasy Premier League Enthusiast and a man who currently sits in the top 3,500 out of 3.5 million players playing the game today. That's right, he is a manager who is in the top 0.1% of players in the game today. He is the manager of Back Kane Ings. He is Carlos Kickaball, and he has sent me a prepared statement regarding where points can be had in the coming weeks. Dear Richard, Sigurdsson. We all know how good he is playing in the hole for Swansea. He's creative and a goal threat. He's a bargain at 6.4 million. In an average 90 minutes, he creates almost 3 chances and has 2 attempts on goal, scoring around 1 in 10. Will he miss Bonnie though? Swansea won't be as good going forward without Bonnie, that's a guarantee. But Gomez is a good replacement, and I'm sure he'll start performing a little bit better sooner rather than later. Of the 12 goals Sigurdsson has been involved with, assisted or scored, Bonnie has only been involved in 3 of them. Is he worth bringing in with the tough fixtures going forward? The next 4 games for Swansea see them host Man United, then away to Burnley, away to Spurs, home to Liverpool. Not brilliant, but he has done it against Man United and Liverpool this season. 21 points in those 2 fixtures so far this season. So while they're not brilliant, I'd say he'll still be good value. The 6 games after that are very easy for Swansea, and I'd suggest he'll be close to must-have at that point. Victor Moses. A bargain at 5.2 million with a great week 27 fixture at home to Hull. He could be a great 5th midfielder to give you a good chance of some point scoring when covering your missing Chelsea and Spurs players. He seems to take almost all of Spurs corners when he is on the pitch, averaging 4 corners taken per appearance. He's got to be worth a good couple assists. For me, Moses is the best sub 6 million midfield option. Is Walters a better shout? Possibly, but he is not as good going forward on the wing as Moses, and he's not likely to play up front most weeks. His hat-trick against QPR was good, but it's unlikely that that will be repeated anytime soon. Julian Lescott. 4.9 million for a West Bromwich Albion defender who is a goal threat seems like a good deal to me, especially with some of the fixtures coming up in the next 10 game weeks or so. Fixtures are really important for defenders, which is why defensive rotation works so much better than attacking rotations. How good is his goal scoring record? His Premier League goal scoring record is very good. He's already got 1 this season, and hopefully for those that buy him, he can find his Everton scoring form from way back when. In the Premier League, he scored 22 in 241, which is a goal every 11 games, and better than Leighton Baines, surprisingly enough, who has 27 goals in 325 Premier League games, or a goal every 12 games. Now, as it pertains to West Brom, is the Pulis effect overrated? At this point, they've got 9 clean sheets already this season, and whether they get better under Pulis or merely stay at the same level, he's got to be a good pick. And West Brom defenders have got to be a good pick, because Pulis knows how to close a game down and close a game out. The Dipsy Dudes Divisional Championship. Well, this might be controversial come the end of the season, but there's a new team at the top, and it's a newcomer as Internet Cafe Thistle topples Latchford again after a 70-point game week, which could have been even more if he hadn't had Sanchez as captain. Will this come back to haunt them at the end of the season? Suddenly there seems to be a clear top 4 emerging as we go into the final months of the season, with Triple DC Originals Latchford again and messing around battling Internet Cafe Thistle and In My Beer View Mirror. What drama! Right, that's about it for this game week. Thank you very much for joining us. Remember, if you like what you see, click the old like button, leave us a comment, or hit subscribe to ensure that you get the latest Dipsy Dudes videos as soon as they are released. Videos like our Retro Redux, which was released this week, which sees myself, Adam and Rob layeth the smacketh down on some candy asses as we go back in time and play Smackdown 2 Know Your Role for the PlayStation 1. God, I love that game so much. Remember, we have a social media presence on Twitter and Facebook, as well as a discussion group at fiso.co.uk. Links to all of those in the description. Now, if you would like to put yourself forward as a guest contributor, like Carlos Kickaball did this week, then you can use any of our social media avenues or the fiso.co.uk discussion group to get in touch, and you can have your Fantasy Premier League thoughts voiced right here on the Fantasy Football Fix. But from me, until next week, good luck for game week 26, which is the amount of points Wales scored against Scotland in the Six Nations last weekend. What a coincidence. Come on.